Good evening and welcome to Road Trip Criminals, the show where we cover one crime from every state, be it solved or unsolved. And today we are on what episode are we on, 5?
I believe it's 5.
5. And we are covering California today. And before we get into all of the drama, what are some facts about California?
Yep, let's do some fun facts first. So, California's official nickname is obviously the Golden State. That's pretty much what everyone knows it as, and that's why you get things like the Golden State Killer, things like that. Right. So their motto, real quick before we get into more descriptions of the name, is Eureka. Just throwing that out there.
Okay, sure.
Yep. So, the Golden State became the official nickname of California in 1968, which actually seems fairly late for it, but it seems like it was sort of, I guess, the unofficial nickname before that. It was just set into stone as the official nickname at that point. So, obviously it got its nickname from the Gold Rush and all that. So, it's fairly straightforward, California's nickname.
Most effective kind.
California is... Yeah, exactly. California is also known as the grape state, though, because they have a lot of, vineyards and all that, so a lot of grapes there as well.
Right.
So, keeping with some of the golden theme, I suppose, of California, the California state freshwater fish is the golden trout. Okay. The state flower is the California poppy, which is yellow. Yep. Apparently the state colors are blue and gold, so...
Not surprising.
Keep that on too, yep. The state mineral is gold.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, not being super surprising there. Something else, the state mammal, land mammal specifically, is the California grizzly bear. That's on their flag.
Yes.
They like to keep things simple, I suppose. Also, their state folk dance is the square dance. I'm not quite sure if I've seen any of these states that have a state dance that isn't the square dance yet, but maybe I've missed it.
It's a good dance, I guess.
I suppose so.
Although my mind doesn't go to square dance with California as much as it does Arkansas. So.
No, Arkansas or Alabama, any of the southern states, I think more square dance than
just
California.
Appalachia
I don't know, maybe that's why they specify... Yeah, maybe that's why they specify folk dance for it.
Probably.
Probably. But that's all the fun facts that I have for California. Now we can get into the not-so-fun facts.
Tell me about crime.
So, today we'll be talking about the Santa Rosa Hitchhiker murders, which took place in the area around Santa Rosa, California.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Makes sense.
So, it's a lot of murders, with some confirmed rapes as well in there, that all took place in that area between 1972 and 1973. So, there are 7 that are considered to have been all done by the same perpetrator, with an additional 8 to 12 that are considered possible or possibly done by the same guy.
Jeez.
Yes, so we will be going through all of them.
Okay.
Yes, some of them don't have as much information as others, so some of them are a little bit faster, but some of them do have quite a bit of information on them. So, basically the similarities between the 7 that are believed to have definitely been done by the same person is that they were found naked in a ditch or a ravine just near the road. It seems like a fairly loose tie to me, but we'll get into that a little later, I think.
Okay.
So, the first 2 victims, they both went missing at the same time, so we're putting them together. So that was Maureen Sterling, who was 12, and Yvonne Weber, or Weber or Weber. I've seen all sorts of pronunciations. I don't know which one to choose, so we're going with Yvonne. But she was 13. So on February 4th of 1972, Maureen and Yvonne were dropped off by their mothers at the Redwood Empire Ice Arena at about 7:30 p.m.
Okay. It's pretty late.
Yeah, they could have been, going to a party or something like that. I remember when I was younger, we went to a roller skating rink for someone's birthday party, and it was fairly late in the evening when we went as well.
Yeah, but I guess just dropping your kid off at 7:30 is strange to me.
Yeah.
Like, if you go there, then sure. But, like, just dropping them off, like, yeah, hey, good luck. It seems strange.
Yeah. So, around 9 o'clock that same night, the girls were seen hitchhiking on Guerneville Road. I believe I'm saying that properly. And that's the last place they're seen alive.
So did their moms not even come pick them up?
Right. Their mothers don't return until 11 o'clock that night to pick them up. So,
I see.
Yeah, they were expected to ice skate from 7:30 to 11, I suppose. I don't know. That seems like a long time to ice skate.
It's pretty cold. Did they not have, like, a phone there? Like typically you'd have, like, a payphone or something, yeah.
Yeah.
Or
I'm
a landline in
certain
the store.
they didn't.
Or the rink.
Yeah, they don't mention it. They don't even mention why the girls may have been hitchhiking. I don't think it was to go home though.
Right.
If they knew that a ride was coming, because I would assume that their mothers probably set up okay, what time do you want us to come pick you up?
One would hope, yeah.
Yes. So I would assume they're like, okay, at a certain point they're like, oh yeah, we can go, I don't know, get some food or something from somewhere else and come back before mom shows up.
Right.
So, I don't know. For some reason they decided to hitchhike at 9.
Not a smart choice.
And didn't make it back. Well, there was a lot of hitchhiking going on back then, even if it wasn't a very smart choice.
I mean, yeah, hitchhiking was a lot more common back then. But a 12 and 13-year-old hitchhiking at 9 p.m.
Yeah.
Not the most sound choice.
No, and I think, we have the power of hindsight, right? And back then they felt much safer for whatever reason, even though now we can look back and be like, crime was through the roof back then.
Yeah, there was a lot of serial killers back then. Like, what year was this?
This was 72.
Isn't that when Bundy started killing? I'm pretty sure it is.
I believe so. Bundy was there. Zodiac was there.
Zodiac was around. I don't think Gacy had started
all kinds
yet, but he was getting there.
He was around in the 70s at some point.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was the prime time for killers out there.
Yeah.
So the girls' bodies weren't found until December 28th of 1972. So they went missing in February, I believe. Yes, February 4th is when they went missing, and they weren't found until December 28th. So nearly a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So their bodies were found together, dumped in a ravine near Porter Creek Road and Franz Valley Road. Due to the length of time between when they had been killed and dumped and when their bodies were actually found, a cause of death couldn't be determined. And they also couldn't determine whether or not the girls had been sexually assaulted.
Right.
So their clothes weren't there with their bodies, but they were able to find a cross necklace, and a single earring was found with them. Maureen's mother was able to identify both the necklace and the earring as her daughter's. The other earring was not found. So it's believed that the killer took the clothes and earring as a sort of trophy.
Right.
So.
Strange choice, the clothes. Like, the earring I can see, but...
Right.
You can't really explain away young girls' clothing in your... assuming you're a dude.
It is very odd. Very odd. But I won't pretend to understand the psychology of a killer.
Right.
So, that's all I have on those two.
Okay.
So the third victim, her name is Kim Allen. She was 19. So on March 4th of 1972, Kim decided to hitchhike to go back home from her job at Larkspur Natural Foods.
Okay.
So she was hitchhiking to go home.
Right.
She did actually have 2 checks with her on the time, one dated for March 4th for $150, which is currently about $900, from her father, and the other for $56.28, which is currently about $350, from her workplace. So that was her paycheck for the week.
Okay.
She was also carrying a large soy barrel with a Chinese character on it.
Okay.
And I suppose by large, I'll specify a little bit, it was 2 foot high and 1 foot wide at the top, and one of the ends was open. Right, and I don't even know how the soy was being carried. I don't know if it was like tofu or soybeans or just a hell of a lot of soy sauce.
Yeah, just the sauce. That's what I was imagining.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what kind of soy she carried in her barrel, but she had quite a bit of it.
Yeah, she had a family serving.
So, 2 men gave her a ride part way and last saw her about 5:20 p.m. near the Bell Avenue and Highway 101. So,
Okay.
they were actually cleared later, so they're not suspects. They legitimately just gave her a partway ride near the highway. So, somewhere between 5:20 and the next day, March 5th, she was killed, and her body was put in a ravine in a creek bed near Enterprise Road and Bennett Valley Road. So, her body was discovered fairly quickly and early. So, her wrists and ankles had been bound. She also had wounds, specifically cuts, on her chest. And some people think that indicates that she may have been tortured before her death. I didn't see how... No one mentioned how deep the wounds were. So, I'm not sure if they were intentional cuts or if she was pushed down the ravine, she may have gotten cut up on her way down, right?
Right.
So she had been raped, and semen was collected from her body.
That's good.
Yes. She had been strangled with some sort of cord or wire, but it ended up taking her about 30 minutes to actually die. So,
Right.
a single gold hoop earring was found with her, along with a necklace made of driftwood, seeds, eucalyptus buttons, seaweed, tree moss, and seashells, which sounds incredibly ugly. No offense. I cannot picture it being cute, but whatever floats your boat. So, there are a few... Yes?
I mean, to be fair, she was also hauling around an industrial-sized soy sauce or whatever.
Right, yeah.
Soy. I don't think she was trying to... You know, she seems like someone who liked to make a statement.
Yeah, she certainly did. She worked at a natural food store. It would not surprise me if she was more into that natural stuff.
Wave, maybe?
Yes.
That was still around.
Right. So, there's a couple more interesting facts related to Kim's murder. There were marks and tracks along the side of the ravine, indicating that the killer had fallen and may have actually been injured after that. So, because it seemed like, I didn't mention this in Maureen and Yvonne's, but apparently the killer didn't usually just toss them into the ravine. He seemed to carry them, because with the first 2, he apparently carried them across a ditch first before putting them in the ravine. So he had to go down and up that carrying bodies as well. So he apparently had a decent amount of strength on him as well. So I had a little bit of contradictory information regarding an orange backpack of Kim's. Some say that it was never recovered, and others say that it was recovered a few weeks later. So they may or may not have Kim's
Okay.
backpack.
Okay.
Yep. So on March 24th, she was killed on March 4th, or early on March 5th.
Okay.
So on March 24th, between 6 a.m. and 12:05 p.m., someone put her checkbook in a drive-up mailbox across from the Kentfield post office.
Okay.
And there were 2 fingerprints on there that may have belonged to the killer. So they have those.
This killing seems a lot more sloppy than the first two.
Yes, it does. Some of these, I'll get into it more a little bit later, but some of these I feel likely weren't done by the same person, and I'm not quite sure why
Right.
authorities believe they were.
Well, it's also like maybe it was just opportunity, but typically, if you're going after 12 and 13-year-olds, you won't go after a 19-year-old as
Right,
well.
that's what I was thinking too. Yes. And Kim
Like,
is only the second
maybe-
oldest of the 7. So that's why I'm like, why are the age ranges
Right.
so large?
Yeah, because typically, if you have a type, you'll stick with it.
Right.
You know?
Yes.
And if there was an even wider range of ages where it's kids, adults, middle age, then
Right.
I could see like just opportunity.
Right. Yeah.
But having it be still relatively young is strange.
Yeah. And there are some pictures, and I could see they all looked fairly young. So I could maybe see, because the younger girls did look a little bit older and the older girls did look a bit younger. So I could see maybe some confusion where maybe he was going for like 15, 16-year-olds and managed to get these other girls as
Right.
well. But it is, the ages are something that's kind of a sticking point for me. Because it's, like I said earlier, it seems like the reason that they've tied all these together was that they were found naked in a ditch. And this is such a crime of opportunity. It feels like a hitchhiking girl, pick her up, rape her, dump her in a ditch. That doesn't seem like it could not be more than one person doing it.
Right. I think having it be so close together in time and similar crime scenes, I
Right.
can see why they connected them.
Right.
But yeah, it's hard to say.
Yeah.
Because I would say copycat, maybe, but with only one murder before this, I don't
Well,
see
and
that.
their bodies weren't found until after Kim's body. Kim's was the first body found.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
because she was found the day after she was murdered, and Maureen and Yvonne weren't found until December. So, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. It's strange.
Yep. So, there's also an oily substance on the right side of her body that they identified as an oil used in metal cutting at machine shops. And so I've been trying to figure out what they could potentially be talking about. Because I've
Right.
taken a machine tools class. I work in a factory. So it's like at first I was thinking some sort of lubricant maybe for the machine.
Right. That's what my mind went to.
Right. That would make the most sense. And the problem when it says oily substance is that, what does that mean? Does it mean an oil? Does it mean, because some of the lubricants we use at our plant are actually more solid. And then
Right.
whenever they're warmed from the
More like
moving
gel,
machine, yeah,
kinda.
they keep it moving like that. But if you were to touch it, it's very sticky actually. It's not oily, I would say.
Right.
So I'm not sure exactly, because that's what I was trying to think whenever it says that it was identified as an oil used in metal cutting. An oil, unless it's like the oil from the actual machine, but I don't know why that would get out of the machine. Your oil should not be leaking from your machine.
Right. Yeah, that's
so-
a problem.
Yeah. So I'd have to assume it's some sort of lubricant used in the moving parts of the machine,
Right.
just to keep things moving smoothly. So
Yeah, it seems most likely.
Yep.
But I also don't know why she would have lubricant all over one side of her body.
Right. Unless whenever they put her in whatever vehicle they used to transport her, it got on her that way somehow. It was somehow in the vehicle.
Right. And how much was on her?
They just said it was on her right side. They didn't say how much.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll move on to the fourth victim. Her name was Lori
Okay.
Kursa. She was 13. So we're going back in age. Lori was a frequent runaway and hitchhiker. Apparently she did that a lot, which is also something apparently a lot of kids did back then, is just run away. And
Yeah.
so reading through all these and how many of these girls were like, oh yeah, they frequently ran away beforehand, and so their parents were just sort of like, she'll come back eventually, and then she doesn't.
And she didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can kind of understand now why the police were constantly like, if there's ever a kid missing, they're like, oh, they're just a runaway. Because at one point,
Right.
I basically was doing that too. I was like, oh, she just ran away again. So,
Yeah, it was rebellious times back then, you know?
I guess, but I don't know. Again, I guess with hindsight, we can look back and be like, running away and hitchhiking with random people is not very safe.
Not the smartest plan.
No. So, on November 11th of 1972, Lori ran away while she was shopping with her mother at a U-Save. So, on November 20th or 21st, Lori was seen and known to be visiting some friends. So she was still alive from the 11th to the 20th or 21st of November.
She ran away for a while, huh?
Yes.
This wasn't like a day or two jaunt. This
No, she was missing for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So that meeting with her friends was the last that she was seen. On December 14th of 1972, her remains were found in a ravine near Calistoga Road and Harville Road. Her remains were frozen due to the weather, so they could get a bit more information off of her than otherwise maybe. The coroner's office estimated that she had been killed between December 1st and 10th. So, I don't know if she went back home after the 20th and then ran away again, or if she was still just run away during all that time. But it wasn't until from December 1st to 10th that she was actually killed. And she showed no signs of sexual assault.
Okay.
She actually died due to a broken neck.
Okay.
Her first and second cervical vertebrae had been dislocated, and due to the trauma, she had compressed her spinal cord and had hemorrhaging of her spinal cord.
Jeez.
So there are two options, I suppose, for why she had that damage. One being that she had been thrown into the ravine before she had actually died. Mm-hmm. The other one being that her captor or captors had stripped her naked and were going to try and do something, but she managed to get out and jump out of the vehicle and managed to land poorly in the ravine and ended up actually killing herself. And so that could also be why she didn't have any signs of sexual assault, is because she escaped before they could actually do anything to her.
Right.
So she had wire loops in both of her ears, but no earrings actually attached. So she had, like, I guess the wire base of an earring, but it didn't have anything actually hanging from the earrings, right?
Gotcha.
So after her body had been found, a witness did come forward saying that between December 3rd and 9th, at about 9:30 p.m., he had seen a white van, probably a Ford, with an off-color door on the driver's side. It was either dark gray or had been painted with a primer. And it looked like it had been dented and then hammered back out. So that van was parked on Calistoga Road.
Okay.
And the witness said that as he came around the corner, he was coming back from work. So he came around the corner of the road. He saw two men on either side of a girl leading her to the van. So they pushed her into the van, then got in, and the driver, who he described as a white man with an afro.
Okay.
Yep, so they ended up speeding off down Calistoga Road, heading north. So that's the first bit of description I guess we have of one of these. and it's of the driver, who was only described as a white man with an afro. I'm
Okay.
uncertain how popular an afro was with white men back then, so I cannot say if this was an odd
I'm
hairdo.
sure it was more common than it is now.
Yeah, for sure.
And was
So-
it like a
Hmm?
like a Jufro or a...
They just said a white man with an afro or an afro type hairstyle or something like that. So it could have been anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, the fifth victim. Her name was Carolyn Davis, and she was 15.
Okay.
So, Carolyn had run away from home on February 6th of 1973. On July 15th of 1973, Carolyn's grandmother dropped her off outside of the Garberville post office. And I'm not sure if she had been staying with her grandmother before that, or if she had just recently shown up at her grandmother's house. I don't know. I couldn't find anything either way. So, but after she went away in February, somehow in July, she ended up at her grandmother's, who then dropped her off at a post office.
So she ran away in February and ended up at her grandma's in July?
Yes, she ran away February 6th, and on July 15th, she ended up at her, that's when her grandmother dropped her off. So I'm not sure if she ran away and stayed with her grandmother or what she was doing between that time. But I never saw anything indicating that she went home before July, right?
Okay. Gotcha.
So on July 15th, she was seen hitchhiking near Highway 101, the southbound ramp specifically, in Garberville.
Okay.
On July 31st of 1973, her body was discovered only about 4 feet away from where Maureen and Yvonne's bodies had been dumped, and those were the first two victims.
Jeez. Okay.
So
those two are probably connected.
probably. But the road was wider in that area, allowing motorists to easily pull over, so it might just even be a coincidence from just ease of dumping. I'm not sure. I would put it more likely that these two were related just due to the returning
Right.
of it, but
Yeah, same place, similar ages, similar everything.
yeah.
You know.
The problem with this one is that her cause of death is different from the other girls. However, Maureen and Yvonne's cause of death could not be determined. So
Right.
they could also have been killed the same way. We don't know. But Carolyn was killed by strychnine poisoning. So she had been poisoned.
Okay.
Yeah, which is a little bit odd because most of the other girls were strangled, except for the one who likely jumped out and snapped her neck.
Right.
So,
Because,
yeah.
I mean, a killer changing their styles, you know, isn't... Like, their methods of killing isn't strange.
Right.
But that's a big one. Like, that's a big leap.
That's the thing. It's like going from, like, strangling to stabbing is one thing. Going from strangling to
beating
poisoning
or something like that.
is a bit odd.
Yeah, that's strange.
Yes. So, she had died approximately 10 to 14 days before her body was actually found. So,
Okay.
yep. So, she was found on July 31st, and she had been dropped off on July 15th.
So, you said the area she was found was, like, decently popular, right?
I'm not sure if popular is the right word. It was...
Or, like, it had a lot of through traffic?
It had a place for people to pull over and, like, look at the scenery, right? So...
And it was, like, right there?
Yeah, where, like, the pullover was, that's where her body and Maureen and Yvonne's bodies were all found. Like, they had been pulled over and just dumped in that area.
That's weird. That makes me assume that they were kept.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the sisters, or the two girls.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, they weren't found for, 10 months?
Yeah.
And it was right there, you know?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's hard to say because, like I said, apparently there was a little like ditch before the ravine that they were dropped in. So if someone didn't go through that ditch, maybe they didn't see the bodies beforehand.
Maybe. Yeah.
And it might have been, maybe after that first time the police were checking there a little bit more often, and that's why Carolyn was found a little bit faster, even though she was still found several days, 10 to 14 days after her death. So.
Right.
So, I'm not sure, right?
Right.
So I actually want to get into strychnine poisoning a little bit, because it's...
I was looking that
yes,
up, actually.
Yes.
That's what I was looking at.
No, I try to give people information on something they may not have heard of before, because this one it's very ruthless, actually, and not something you hear a lot of. Yeah.
It doesn't look too fun.
No, yeah. About...
I was thinking maybe if it, because I didn't know the effects, maybe if it, like, sedated them in a way, then they could have used it to, like, keep her.
Right. But it does, like, the opposite of
she
sedating.
Just overdosed. Yeah. No. That's just... Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'll go ahead and get into it real quick for everyone listening. So, 10 to 20 minutes after ingestion, the muscles in the body begin to spasm, starting with the head and neck, causing lockjaw and a rictus grin. The spasms and convulsions spread across the entire body, becoming worse with any sort of stimulus. So, any sort of sound, sight, anything would cause more spasms. Apparently, when people are brought into the hospital with this, they're locked in, well, maybe not locked is the right word, but they're put into a dark room with basically no stimulus in there to keep them from convulsing.
Jeez.
Yeah. So, death is caused by exhaustion from the convulsions, or from asphyxiation from paralysis of the neural pathways that control breathing. Death usually occurs within 2 to 3 hours of ingestion.
Yikes.
Yes. It's
not good.
Not something I would want to deal with.
So that builds on the theory that she was being kept.
Maybe.
So death within 2 to 3 hours.
Right. Let's see. She had died 10 to 14 days before her body was found. They did determine that. She was found July 31st. She was last seen on July 15th. So, either somewhere between, like, the day after she had gone missing and, like, July 20th is when she ended up dying. So if they did keep her, they didn't keep her for very long.
That's just weird to me.
Yeah. Very...
Because...
Go ahead.
Yeah. It's just that... It's weird that she was dumped in a place where she was and wasn't found for so long.
Right. Yeah. But, I mean, Maureen and Yvonne were dumped in the same place and not found for even longer.
Right. But it's just because... I think it's mostly because it's like a little tourist, like, side stop.
Mm-hmm.
And it's July, which is, like, tourist season.
Well, I'm not sure about California's tourist season around there.
I'm not sure either, but typically, summer is tourism time.
Because I'm trying to think about, like, Gatlinburg, right? Like, peak tourist season for Gatlinburg is, like, October, right? It's fall, the fall colors. Right. During the summer, I don't think there's as much traffic. Like, you might get families or whatever on vacation, but...
It's a lot.
It's a lot, but not as much as, like, peak season, right? And if this guy lives in this area, which we're assuming, then he doesn't have to go necessarily during the day to dump them. He could go at night. Especially if he knows the area. If he's been around there for a while, he would know, okay, I know the layout of this place pretty well. So I know there's this little ditch first, and then the ravine, and from the road you won't necessarily see their bodies in this ravine or something like that, right?
Right.
So I could see something like that happening.
I mean, I don't know where she was in the ravine or how far she was from
Right.
where people would be able to see her, or
Mm-hmm.
if she was like behind a tree or behind a rock or
Right.
down behind like a drop off or something. But
Mm-hmm.
it's, yeah,
Yes.
it's strange.
Yep. So they weren't able to determine whether or not she had been sexually assaulted. Um, there was an injury to her right ear, like someone had attempted to pierce it, apparently. Her left ear was fine,
Okay.
but the police later state that the hole was caused by decomposition, which is a little weird, but okay.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, it's possible because
Possibly.
years go quick,
Yeah, yeah. So apparently there was also a witchcraft symbol near her body that means carrier of spirits. Um, it
Okay.
was made from sticks and twigs and it was actually on the road above her body.
Okay.
So it looked like a wrecked. I am quoting what the police said about this, alright? This is a direct quote. And it is the most confusing
Okay.
description ever. I cannot picture what this thing looks like.
Cool.
It looks like a rectangle connected to a square with bars running alongside.
Okay. I mean, I don't know the exact like
Right. I mean, I
rotation,
suppose you
but I
can
think I can. Yeah,
look it up and see because it's apparently like a medieval witchcraft symbol or whatever.
I will.
Yeah, it apparently meant carrier of spirits. In case that helps. So we don't know if that was a coincidence that that was there, or if it was intentionally left there, or if the police were just seeing what they wanted to see there, or what. So
Yeah, I can't find it.
okay.
Google search is way too inaccurate when you look up a witchcraft symbol,
Yeah,
like
I could see
anything
that.
related to it.
Yeah. All right. So we'll move on to the sixth victim. Her name was Teresa
Okay.
Walsh. She was 23, so she's the oldest victim.
Okay.
Again, quite a bit of an age gap
She.
there.
Yeah. Assuming this was the same person, she must have looked pretty young.
Yeah. And I mean, I can understand that. I am currently
Yeah, I
25,
mean,
and people finally say that I look 16. So, woo. Before now, people thought I was 14. So, oh goodness. So, could be she had a young face. Her mother reported her missing on December 13th of 1973. However, on December 22nd, she was actually with her friends at Zuma Beach in Malibu.
okay.
Yeah. So she just ran away to go party at the beach for a while, I guess.
Hey, December's the time to do it, I guess.
I guess. Seems a little chilly, but what would I know?
Yeah. I mean, it's California. It's on
Yeah.
the beach.
Yeah.
It's like perma 70 there.
Yeah. So from the beach, she decided to hitchhike back home to spend Christmas with her parents and son, who lived near Garberville. So her body was found on December 28th of 1973 by kayakers in Marquest Creek. So her body was actually half submerged under a log, and she was naked.
Okay.
So her body, specifically where it was in the creek, it was about half a mile from a cul-de-sac on Michelle Way and close to the intersection with Lorraine Way. And specifically
Okay.
where her body was, there was like steep, I want to say cliffs, but like, like sides on both sides of the
Banks,
creek. Yeah, both the banks were very steep. So it was unlikely that she had been specifically brought there and dropped.
Right.
So police actually believe that her body being carried by high water that they had due to heavy rain the week before.
Okay.
So, actually, her body was about a quarter of a mile from where the creek passes under Calistoga Road, if you remember that name from
Yeah.
earlier. I don't remember exactly who. Lori, her remains are found near Calistoga Road. So, that might be something, or maybe not. Because the police say that her body could have been carried for miles before being caught there. So,
Yeah, and I mean, quarter mile's not far.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Especially because after like a day of being dead, you'll bloat and float in water. So it's entirely possible. That makes sense.
Yep. So she was believed to have died and been placed in the water between 2 days to a week before she was found. Her wrist and ankles had been bound with nylon rope, and her thumbs were also tied together for some reason. Her cause of death was strangulation. She was found with a noose around her neck, and the way it was tied was if she struggled, it would tighten the noose. So...
Right.
Right.
A snare pull, yeah.
Yeah. So there was also evidence of a severe blow to the back of her head, which could have also potentially killed her. She also had a bruise over her right eye. So it seems like, I don't know, maybe she fought back a little bit more, or she was just hit more than some of the others.
Yeah, she was the oldest and probably the biggest.
Yes.
So it makes sense that she'd either fight back more or take more hits to kill, you know?
Right, yes. So now the 7th victim was actually a Jane Doe. She is unidentified currently. Her remains were found on July 2nd of 1979, so much later.
Right.
Her remains were also found in a ravine on Calistoga Road, and were actually found about 100 yards away from where Lori Curse's body had been discovered.
How old was she?
They think that she was between 16 and 20 years old.
Okay.
But we don't know for sure because she was
Which one was Lori?
Lori was 13, I believe.
Lori was 13, okay.
Yes. She had been bound, like the other victims, and it was determined that her arm had been broken around the time of her murder.
Okay.
She had been stuffed into either a laundry or duffel bag and been tossed into the ravine, and due to her basically just being a skeleton, they weren't able to determine a cause of death. They were able to come up with a general description of her, though, so I'll go ahead with that. She was, like I said before, between 60 and 20 years old. She wore hard contacts, which she kept in a metal candy tin that had cherries on it.
Okay.
One expert figured that she had been killed between 1972 and 1974, since after the mid-70s, hard contacts were rarely sold or worn. That's when soft contacts came out. So the fact that she had hard contacts means that she was likely killed around the same time as the other girls.
Okay.
She had red, auburn, or brown hair. She was about 5'3". She had a broken rib that had healed before her murder. They couldn't determine her eye color or weight, obviously. Also, no clothing was found with her. So,
right.
And that's what we know of Jane Doe.
Okay.
So now we're moving on to possible victims. So this first one I saw listed with the other 7 occasionally, making the number 8 instead of 7. However, I could see potentially why, but I wouldn't immediately put it with the others because her body has never been found. So,
gotcha.
Yes. So I hesitate to put her with the other 7 without a body. So her name was Jeanette Kamahele? Something like that. She was 20
Okay.
On April 25th of 1972, she was seen hitchhiking near Highway 101. That time it was the Kotati ramp. One of her friends saw her getting into a faded brown Chevrolet pickup truck with a homemade wooden camper. They said that the driver was 20 to 30 years old, white, male, and he had an afro. So I can see that tie, I suppose, with the other guy, but it was a different kind of car. And again, I don't know how frequently white men wore afros back then. So,
Right.
but like I said, her body's never been found. So that's all the information I have on her.
Okay.
So, let's see. The next two possible ones or victims were Carrie Graham, who was 15, and Francine Trimble, who was 14. So the girls went missing sometime around mid-December of 1978. So this is quite a ways after the other girls. Yes. Francine's mother had seen the girls on December 15th. Carrie's sister had seen them on either the 15th or 16th. So it's sometime after that they disappeared. Apparently they had gone to the mall to get Christmas presents, but did intend to hitchhike to a party later. So Francine's mother reported Francine missing within a couple days of her going missing. Carrie's family didn't report her missing until Christmas Eve because Carrie had a habit of running away, so her family didn't think too much of it. So the police also believe that the girls were runaways. However, Francine had medication that she needed to take that she had left at home beforehand, so her mother was less likely to believe that she ran away.
Right.
So on July 8th of 1979, their remains were found in a ditch in the Jackson State Forest. They could not determine their causes of death. The girls were believed to have been bound with duct tape that they had found at the scene, and also had been placed in plastic bags.
Okay.
So they didn't find any clothing, but there was a single bird-shaped earring, which they couldn't find the other one to. So that brings it back to the missing earring, no clothes thing.
Right.
Next possible victim is Laura Smith, 17. She had been hitchhiking on Hearn Avenue in March of 1971, so before the others. Her foster parents reported her missing on March 16th of 1971. On March 26th, she was picked up by a male driver who threatened her with a gun and told her he would rape her, and she jumped out of the vehicle, which had been going 55 miles an hour around Novato, California. She was treated for a concussion at the Novato General Hospital, but she ended up leaving before the police could talk to her.
Okay.
Yeah. She apparently eventually ended up returning to her biological parents in Livermore, California. I don't know how they confirmed this, but apparently that's true. And I don't know why the police have never attempted to talk to her since then. But
It's a bit strange, yeah.
yes. She was potentially the one that got away, right? But I think it's also odd that she left before she could talk to the police, because that could have stopped
I mean,
a lot of what happened afterwards.
yeah. Right. And maybe she was scared too because she was a runaway.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
it's strange that the police never followed up though.
Right. Yes. So, now we're going to move on to the potential additional victims that the FBI believe were also likely tied to the same perpetrator.
Okay.
So they released this list in 1975. So only a little bit after the other, the killings had happened.
Right.
So they have 8 victims that they believe were killed by the same guy as the 7 that I talked about earlier. And I will try to get through them quickly. So first was Rose Vasquez. She was 20. She went missing on May 26th of 1973. Her body was found on May 29th of 1973. Her body was in a ditch near the Golden Gate Park in San Francisco, specifically the Arguello entrance, but she was naked and had been strangled. So the next one is Yvonne Quillentang. She was 15. Her body was found on June 10th of 1973 in a vacant Bayview lot in San Francisco. She had been strangled, and she was 7 months pregnant.
She was 15?
She was 15.
Okay.
Yes. So these are taking place in San Francisco, while the others took place in or around Santa Rosa, which San Francisco is about an hour to an hour and a half away from Santa Rosa, assuming you're not counting traffic from San Francisco.
Oh, right.
I'm not sure. I'd have to line these up specifically with where the others were to see if there was any sort of weird back and forth, because I doubt there would be like that. Like one in San Francisco, then one in Santa Rosa, that sort of thing. But if they're all kind of grouped together in one place and then grouped together in another, and then, maybe going back to the other, then I could
much
see it more
plausible.
Yes.
Or if they were split up, it could be, it could be something like with your work where you work in one town, but then you have like meetings in another town.
Yeah.
Every now and again.
Yeah.
Like business trips.
Yeah.
Where you have to go and back and forth.
Right. It's
so
more likely.
It's a possibility.
Yeah. More likely
if it is mixed up.
Right. Yeah. So the next possible victim was Angela Thomas. She was 16. She was last seen on July 1st of 1973 at the Presidio, which is a park in San Francisco.
Presidio.
There you go, Presidio. Her body was found on July 2nd of 1973 on the playground of Benjamin Franklin Junior High in Daly City. She had been smothered to death.
Okay.
And
you said she was found on a bench?
No, she was found on a playground of Benjamin Franklin Junior High School.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
I think you cut out for a second. Of bench in this. I'm like, what?
No, she was found on the playground, not a bench. And a locket was found near her body. Also, I don't think it was children that found her, because this was July that her body was found. So, no children have been scarred. Yes. Hopefully, at least.
Good. The less of those in a case, the better.
Yeah. Now we have Nancy Gidley, who is 24. So, if she was an actual victim, she would have been the oldest of them.
Right.
She was last seen at a Roadway Inn motel on July 12th of 1973. Her body was found on July 15th of 1973 behind the George Washington High School gymnasium. So she had been strangled, and they determined that she had died just the day before her body was actually found. So she was also naked except for one fish-shaped earring. So actually, Rosa, Yvonne, Angela, and Nancy, while they didn't know each other, they all had some sort of tie to the military. Rosa worked at as a key punch operator at Letterman General Hospital, which is also known as Letterman Army Hospital. Yvonne was the girlfriend of a soldier stationed in Missouri, although she was pregnant by another man. Angela was the daughter of an Army sergeant. Nancy had actually served for 4 years in the Air Force and had been discharged the year before her death. So, it's a very, very loose tie. I don't know if it actually means anything, but It's something to think about, I suppose.
I don't. I doubt it
I
unless
doubt it as
it's
well.
like a mission thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't think it was opportunity because he was in the military, because it's like Army, Air Force,
Right.
like several
Yeah.
different branches.
Different branches. Yes, exactly.
So, yeah, unless it was some kind of mission killing for like anti-military, which that was big at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But why would you kill the wives and girlfriends of military people and not
Right. The
like soldiers themselves
right.
or officers or something like that?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess they're easier to kill,
Right.
but it doesn't send the same message.
Yeah, and some of them where their bodies are found weren't like the other bodies. Rosa's was, um, but well, hers was in a ditch near a park, so not quite the same, but it was still in a ditch. But the other ones, Yvonne's was in a vacant lot, and then Angela and Nancy were found in like school lots, like they were on the property of a school.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't. Mm, I don't know why he would start dumping bodies in much more obvious places, I guess, or more less wilderness, more populated areas.
I mean, unless he's getting more bold,
Mm-hmm.
then I could see it. Or my guess would be if these are all related,
Mm-hmm.
that these are, at least those four would be a separate killer
Yeah.
who was maybe took some inspiration from the other one or the multiple other ones, and they were more of a mission killer. And because the mission killers typically want to make a statement, so they
Right.
would put them in easier to find places. The
Right.
problem is I don't know what the mission would be.
Right. Exactly. Very strange. Like I don't know. I could see these all being separate instances too. Like Yvonne, who was pregnant by another man. It could have just been her boyfriend who found out and was very angry and just,
Right.
snapped and killed her and then dumped her in a lot.
Mm-hmm.
More than I think a serial rapist and murderer would pick up a 7 months pregnant girl.
Right.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I feel like some of these might not actually have been.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. I'm not the FBI. I guess the FBI have a reason they believe that these were all connected.
I mean, the naked body with the piece of jewelry near them is compelling,
Yes.
but
But it's hard to make an entire case off of only that, right?
yeah,
Like that's the only
exactly.
similarities. So, I don't
And
know.
it seems like what they did is they took. It's like, oh, so this person was found with in a similar way, naked in a ditch or somewhere with a piece of jewelry near them.
Yeah.
So that connects them to these people. But then this person is kind of connected to that person.
Uh-huh.
And so they draw that line, and soon all of them are connected, even though
Yeah.
they aren't.
Right. All right. Well, we still have 4 more possible not suspects, victims on the FBI list. So,
Okay.
these don't have a whole lot of information with them, so I'll get through them a little bit quickly. So next is Nancy Fusey, who is 22.
Okay.
She went missing after going to a club in the Sacramento area. On July 22nd of 1973, her body was discovered in Redding. She had been stabbed. So I have no idea
Okay.
why she's on this list, honestly.
Where's Redding in relation to Sacramento?
So Redding is north of Sacramento. And it's...
And Sacramento's like several hundred miles from San Francisco.
Right. I mean, it's not... Well, from here, looking at a map, it's hard to tell. It's a bit northeast.
It's pretty far.
Yeah, like... It's quite a distance. It's...
Because, like, LA to San Diego is like a 3-hour drive.
Yeah, yeah.
So, like, California's huge.
Right, yeah. So looking at a map, it's hard to say, but... So from Sacramento to Redding, apparently by car, it's a 2-hour and 30-minute drive. Currently. I don't know what the roads were like in the 70s there.
Right.
So take all these with all these times between places as current times, unsure what the 70s were like.
Right. Well, interstates were around in the 70s,
right,
but a lot of town driving may have been different.
Yeah. So, so Redding is like a lot north from Santa Rosa and San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
So here's San Francisco, here's Santa Rosa,
Mm-hmm.
Sacramento's here, and there's Redding.
It's a lot north.
Yeah, whoopsies.
Yeah.
So I could see even maybe Sacramento in this like little triangle, well, big triangle here.
Right.
But for her body to have been dumped all the way up here, I don't see it.
Yeah. No. I don't see it.
So, this one's another little kind of weird one, I guess, on the list. But it's on there. And the fact that she had been stabbed instead of strangled, also a bit odd.
Right.
If we're comparing her to the others.
Yeah.
Yep. So the next one is Laura Odell, who is 21. She went missing on November 4th of 1973. On November 7th, her body was found in the Golden Gate Park behind the boathouse near Stowe Lake. Which the Golden Gate Park was also where Rosa's body was found. So,
right.
Her hands had been bound behind her back, and her cause of death was either strangulation or the head injury she had sustained. So, there is more of a tie there, very similar to, who was it? Was it Teresa who was in the water?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So very similar to Teresa, who was in the water with her hands bound and who had more injuries to her.
Yeah, and a heavy blow to her head.
Yes. And Teresa was, older. Next, we have Brenda Merchant, who was 19. On February 1st of 1974, she was found stabbed to death in her home in Marysville. Once again, I'm not sure why she is on this list, because that's very different. She was in her home, she was stabbed. I don't see any sort of tie here.
Yeah. But okay.
Yep. Okay, last one from the FBI list is Donna Braun. She was 14. On September 29th of 1974, her body was found in the Salinas River near Monterey, and she had been strangled. So, that's a bit south. So, Santa Rosa, San Francisco, Sacramento are here, and Monterey is all the way down here. It's south of San Jose. So, don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty far.
Let me see. It's apparently about 2 hours from San Francisco to Monterey.
Okay.
And
it's more in the realm of possibility than some of the others.
Yeah. But yeah, it seems more like this person probably stayed in the Santa Rosa area, maybe San Francisco. I don't see him really moving too far out of that, really. But what do I know? So, I don't know. Those are the ones the FBI believed were connected in some way to the original 7 I talked about. I'm not quite sure how the FBI arrived at their decisions for that, but they did.
It it is a choice.
Yeah. And again, this was the list in 75. I don't know if they would make the same list in 2020.
Right. And also, it's better to have more potential victims than less.
Yeah.
As long as it doesn't hinder the case.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I could see it if they were more in one area, but it seems like they kind of spread a couple of those out that maybe they didn't need to. Because now you're widening the search area potentially unnecessarily.
Right.
Okay. So, we're finally to the suspects.
Tell me.
All right. So, the first one is the Zodiac Killer. He operated from the late 60s to the early 70s. So, what actually makes him a bit of a suspect in this case is that in his January 29th, 1974 final letter, which is the exorcist letter, there's an unknown symbol on it that looks similar to the Chinese character on Kim's soy barrel. So,
I see.
yeah, they don't know what that symbol is, or they didn't on the letter, but people are saying that it looks similar to the Chinese character on the soy barrel. I don't know. I haven't seen it.
Did you hear that one of the Zodiac letters got translated like yesterday?
Really? No, I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
I'll have to look at
Anyway,
that.
yeah, I read it. It's about as wild as the other ones.
Well, yeah. All right.
But maybe, I mean, it could be coincidence. It could be that, but the Zodiac was known for killing couples.
Right. So,
And there were only two, like, pairs of victims.
so part of that.
And, like, maybe.
Oh, go ahead.
I don't know. No, you
Okay.
go.
Part of that is actually in his November 9th, 1969 letter. He states an intention to change his MO so people wouldn't know that it was him. And in his final letter, he claims to have killed 37 victims, even though he only has 5 known victims.
Right.
So, there's also some suggestion that that witchcraft symbol that was near Carolyn's body created some sort of connection to the Zodiac Killer. I'm not...
He did like his symbols.
Right.
But...
Not sure how big he was into witchcraft, or, again,
Right.
if it had anything to do with any of Carolyn's murder in the first place.
Yeah. I mean, if I'd have to see them, but if the symbol on the one girl's soy barrel and in the Zodiac's letter are the same, then maybe.
Maybe.
But has that letter been translated or decrypted?
I believe that was the final one that they were able to confirm that was from him. Because there were some that were after that they were like, no, that was from him. So that's like I said, it's called or it's known as the exorcist letter. So if you look that up, you may be able to see. Apparently it was near the bottom, I believe, of the letter.
Have you seen a picture of what the soy thing looks like?
No, I don't know what her soy barrel looked like.
Because, I mean, some of them might look like Chinese symbols. I can't say I'm too familiar with the language,
not
but
super familiar with Chinese characters.
maybe. And maybe he just killed her.
Yeah.
Well, she was the 19-year-old, yeah?
She was the 19-year-old, yes.
Okay, so that fits more with the Zodiac's age.
Right.
Like, preference. Because he typically went for, like, young couples. So, maybe you could force the jigsaw puzzle together.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's a reach.
Yeah. Well, that's
Um,
what a lot of these suspects seem to be to me is a reach.
yeah, and how is her body found? The second one.
Uh, Kim's body was. Let me see. Let me find her. So she was in a ravine in a creek bed near Enterprise Road and Bennett Valley Road. Her wrists and ankles had been bound, and she was the one with wounds on her chest, where
Okay.
the others didn't seem to have that. She had been strangled, but it ended up taking her about 30 minutes to die. So,
Right. She was found in a creek bed, and the 23-year-old was found in a creek bed, or found in a
she
creek.
was found in a creek,
rather.
yes.
So maybe I could see those two being connected, maybe to the Zodiac. Maybe like because they were older, they were found in similar ways. They both had unusual ways of dying. Like they both died in ways that were a bit different from a lot of the other victims.
Well, I wouldn't say that necessarily because, I mean, Carolyn died from the strychnine poisoning. I would say that's the most odd one out of them all.
That is the most different.
Yeah.
And if you were to make an argument for the Zodiac, saying that he was changing up his method, sure. But going from shooting people, which was what the Zodiac did,
Right.
to
strangulation.
strychnine poisoning.
And strychnine poisoning,
strangulation, hitting over the head.
yes. Right.
It's strange.
It is strange. Not too sure about the Zodiac. The connection I see is tenuous at best. If it's even there in the first place. And not people just seeing what they want to see, right? Because that's the thing with a lot of these unsolved cases, people go for like the big names first.
Yeah.
And
this isn't the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
right. Not all the murders are connected to the big names here.
Right.
And sometimes that causes them to overlook someone local who may have caused one or two of these deaths, and they all end up being connected into this big conspiracy almost, all done by this crazy serial killer when we're looking at them and it's like a lot of these are very different. Like you can see the difference in ages, the difference in one of the girls' deaths versus the other. All of this, that it's like this might not have all been caused by one dude or even like a couple of dudes who were working together even. So I don't know. I don't know. Well, I'll keep going with the suspects and maybe we can go. So the next one was Arthur Lee Allen, which people might be familiar with his name.
One of the Zodiac suspects?
He was suspected of being the Zodiac killer, though he was eventually cleared through DNA testing. So he is not the Zodiac.
So they have his DNA. Just test it with the DNA they found from...
Right? You would think so. But the reason he's suspected is because he owned a trailer in Santa Rosa during the time of the murders. He had actually been fired from his teaching job at Valley Springs Elementary in 1968 due to suspicions of child molestation. September 27th of 1974, he was arrested and charged with child molestation of a young boy. He pleaded guilty in March 1975 and was in prison until late 1977. So, if you're looking at times...
Wait. When did he go to jail?
He pleaded guilty in March of 1975. I assume he was brought to prison shortly after that, and he was in prison until late 1977. Still not enough time, in my opinion, but he did go to jail.
Right. Yeah, definitely not. But... maybe.
I don't think it was him, because if he was at an elementary school and accused of child molestation, he wouldn't be interested in 12-year-olds and up, right? And that's where all of these
Right.
victims are.
Because that's, yeah, pubescent. Yeah.
Right. Because 12-year-olds, that's when you start junior high or middle school, I guess, in some places.
Right.
So he was in elementary school. So that's young kids. That's little kids.
Right.
So it is,
Yeah.
there is that connection there with the trailer in Santa Rosa, but
Yeah, I mean, that's really it.
yeah. Yeah, that's really all for him. So I say no for him.
Yeah, it just seems like they were like, okay, Zodiac doesn't make sense. Let's go with the guy they thought was the Zodiac.
Yeah, and that one makes even less sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't buy that one.
No. So, as always, we have Ted Bundy as the suspect. So, we don't really quite know.
Was he ever in California?
I believe he was. So,
He was in Washington, then Utah, then Florida, right?
he was kind of all over the place. Bundy actually claimed to have tried kidnapping a girl in 1969 and actually killed someone in 1971. Excuse me. He had spent time in Marin County, which is a county neighboring Sonoma County, which is the county that Santa Rosa is in. So he was in California
Okay.
at some point. However, during the time of several of the girls' disappearances and
He
when they
would've
went
been in
missing,
Washington, right?
there were receipts, I think specifically gas receipts, showing he was in Washington. Yes.
Right, because he was a student there at the time.
Right. So, Bundy is out. For everyone who wanted to blame Bundy,
Yeah,
he's
totally.
totally out. He's been completely cleared of these murders.
I mean, maybe some of the like San Francisco women.
Maybe.
But those don't really match his MO.
Right.
Like, he strangled people. But he did it in, like, secluded areas. Where he could go back and revisit the body.
Right.
And, because he was a necrophiliac. And so leaving them in a ditch on the side of the road doesn't make any sense with his
Right.
MO.
Yeah.
And he's someone who never changed his motive. Or
Right.
Yeah.
How he operated and all that. Yeah. So,
Right.
he doesn't make a whole lot of sense,
Yeah,
but again, he's...
that makes no sense.
Yeah, but he was a big name, and so people are always going to be like, but what about Bundy? And it's like, nope, Bundy is
Right.
out.
And I mean, we were talking like 2 hours is a stretch, but like from Washington, I don't know where he was in Washington, to middle Southern California is like a
God.
7-8 hour drive.
It's super
at
long.
least.
Yeah.
So to do that a dozen times, that it doesn't
Yeah.
make sense.
No, absolutely not. So, Bundy's out. Don't even consider him for this one.
Yeah, I like talking about Bundy. I think he's super interesting and horrifying.
Yes.
No.
Not on this one. Not this time, Bundy.
No.
So
Maybe next time.
maybe next time. So they also
Next week's Colorado, right? He was in Utah.
Yeah.
Who knows?
maybe I doubt it because the Colorado case I chose was a man. So
Fair enough.
fair enough.
But yeah. Anyway,
Anyway,
next suspect.
next suspect is the Hillside Stranglers, which were Kenneth Bianchi and Angelo Buono. I'm so sorry to all the Italians out there.
Where now?
Junior, I believe.
Okay.
So they were known for kidnapping, raping, torturing, and killing 10 girls in the Los Angeles area between October of 1977 and February of 1978. The girls were between the ages of 12 and 28. So they did have quite
Okay.
an age gap with their victims.
Right. Yeah.
So that's all I really have on them. I didn't see anywhere where they were like they were able to. They just said they looked into them at some point, and I guess nothing came of it
Right.
since.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them just seem too early,
Yes.
and that's my biggest problem with that. Because, like, motive, sure. Opportunity, sure. Maybe. Uh, Method, yeah. But, yeah, because, like, 72 compared to 77 is a pretty big difference.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. That's what I thought too.
And I'm not terribly familiar with them, but did they like know each other then, or were there any connections
Um,
to?
as far as I can tell, they didn't really have any sort of connection with Santa Rosa. I don't know why they would have been in that area at the time.
Right.
I need to have to look up and do the math to see how old they would have been at that time. One of them was older than the other.
Right.
But as far as I can tell, I don't see really any connection to the Santa Rosa murders.
Yeah. I mean, maybe the one where it was further south. The last one, second to last one.
Yeah, the
Maybe
last
that one.
possible one.
Right.
Yeah.
I could potentially see that one. I don't remember when that was. You said like 75 was that one, right?
That one was 74. So
74. It's more plausible.
right.
Maybe some of the later killings in like San Francisco. Possibly.
Possibly.
But because that was the last killing you mentioned was 77, 78.
Yeah,
So that falls in line, but
yeah. That one.
the vast majority, no.
Yeah, that was probably Kelly Graham and Francine Trumbull. They went missing in December of 78. So
Okay. And that was in San Fran, right?
that was their bodies were found in the Jackson State Forest.
Possible. That one's the most likely to be connected to those two.
I don't know when
Because it was two
they
victims.
were arrested.
So, right. I don't either.
Because it said
But-
that they operated between October of 77 and February of 78. So if they were caught before
okay.
then, or, at that time, then.
Right, before the murders happened,
Yeah.
then. Yeah.
So Jackson State Forest is
yeah.
north of San Francisco. It's north of
Okay.
Santa Rosa by a bit. So probably not.
It's possible.
Anything's possible. Unless they were arrested by then.
Right. Again, I think it's much more likely that it was someone else.
Yeah.
But
Okay, we got
Yeah.
one more suspect.
tell me.
So this is Frederick Manelli. So
Okay.
at the time of the murders,
First name I don't recognize.
no, you probably wouldn't recognize him because this one is actually like a local, potentially related to at least one of the victims.
Okay.
So this one's more
Those
likely,
are typically
in
the
my
most
opinion.
plausible. So,
Yes.
yeah.
So at the time of the murders, he was a creative writing professor at the Santa Rosa Junior College. On August 24th of 1976, he was in a head-on collision and died. And
Oh.
after his death,
Okay.
the police found several sadomasochistic drawings featuring Kim Allen, who had been a student of his. So Kim Allen was the 19-year-old, the one with the soy barrel.
Right.
So, he also had a lock of hair in his wallet and letters talking about his interest in sex slavery and women with large boobs. So,
Okay.
yeah. So who knows? He could have,
Yikes.
he could have specifically just been Kim's murderer, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's. If you told me he killed Kim, I'd believe you.
Right.
But
But,
The rest, maybe. If he was interested in her, that makes me think he probably wouldn't be interested in younger girls.
Right. Hold on, let me see if
Unless he knew her when she was younger.
Right, but he knew her because she was a student of his, and he worked at
Exactly.
a college, so...
So, maybe for the older victims, I could see him. But, yeah.
So let me show you...
I mean, if there was no evidence of anything, then...
So, this is what all the victims looked like.
Okay.
So these were she was 13, she was 12, she was 19. She was the one who was 20, but I don't really count her as part of the 7. She was 13, she was 15, she was 23, and then we don't know what the Jane Doe looks like.
Right.
So...
I mean, a lot of them look similar.
Right.
Especially Kim and Teresa, who are the two I think are the closest connected. So I could see him doing those two. And maybe Carolyn. That picture's not very good of her.
Right. All these pictures are a little rough because they're from the 70s.
And the two younger girls look similar, but at the very least, the first one, Tyone.
Yvonne.
Oh, Yvonne.
Yeah.
It's really small on my screen. Yvonne. It doesn't look much like them.
Right.
And she also looks much younger.
Okay.
But Maureen fits the description better.
And
so maybe he just saw her and was interested and then just killed both of them.
Right, because they were traveling together.
Right.
Yeah, because Maureen was actually the youngest. She was 12.
Maureen was the 12-year-old?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yvonne was 13.
Okay.
I think she just recently turned 13, or Maureen was about to turn 13. One of those two.
Gotcha. Yeah, Jeanette and Lori, though, don't fit
I don't
one
count
at
Jeanette
all.
because we haven't found her body, and she does look so different to everyone else.
She looks very different. Lori, it may just be a different picture, but she looks pretty different, too.
Yeah. I could see...
Like, I can't really see her hair.
Because it's tied
It may
up.
just be pulled back, and she would look more close to them. But, like, all of them seem to have darker eyes. Middle part, longer hair. A more, like, pronounced nose.
That's what I definitely noticed as well.
Yeah.
Was the noses.
And she doesn't fit any of those.
I don't know. I think her nose looks...
apart from maybe the hair.
I could see her nose looking similar to Maureen's, actually. I can kind of see a similarity there.
Yeah. It's harder to see.
Because the other ones are sort of...
That picture's more exposed. Like, it's brighter.
Because I can't even tell...
So it's hard to tell.
Even her hair color, because it looks like blonde maybe up here, but then if you look down here, it looks darker.
It looks blonde, yeah.
So it's like, is it just the lighting or what? I don't know.
It looks blonde to me, but yeah, it's hard to tell.
Right, because if you look at the lighting here, I would be like, oh, that was blonde, but if you look at the lighting over here, it's like, oh, she has darker hair. So I could see something similar here because you can see the darker here and the lighter up here, and you can tell there's definitely some sort of light on her here. So, don't know.
Well, I think which are these in order?
Yes, I believe so, because these were the first two. Then it was Kim.
Okay.
Then Lori. Then Carolyn. Then Teresa. Yeah.
Okay. It's possible because let's assume Jeanette's not involved. Because I think we can both agree if we had to knock one out, it'd be her.
Yes.
especially with the loose connection already. So let's just go with those core 6, because we don't know Jane Doe either.
Right, we don't know what she really looked like. Apparently, she had, like, red or auburn or brown hair. But past that, I could not, can't tell how she wore her hair or what
Right.
she even really looked like.
So she may have looked like
She
them.
may have.
She may not have.
Yeah.
But let's not talk about that.
Right.
So what I could see happen, assuming it is this guy, he's lusting after Kim.
Right.
And he sees Maureen, who looks a decent bit like her. She's younger, but, he's gross and disgusting already. What's
Right.
stopping him?
Yeah.
So and they're hitchhiking, so he has an opportunity.
Yep.
And he takes it. He kills those 2. Then he's like, I killed them. Why not go after Kim?
Right.
And then he does, kills her.
And
now he's got a thing for killing.
right. And Kim was the only one that had those scratches on her chest. The others did not
Right.
have that.
Right. So that, I don't know what kind of scratches they were,
Right.
but that implies it was the most personal. And so maybe after those 3, he's thinking, okay, I like killing. The girl I had a crush on is now dead. Let's try killing again. And he kills Lori. She looks a bit different, but she's still good looking. And maybe even Jeanette, because she was right after Kim. So if she is his victim, like if she is involved, then that could be part of that experimenting with just killing people. Like that forming addiction,
Right.
And then after, because when did Lori die?
Lori died in, let's see, her remains were found December 14th of 1972.
Okay, so not long.
Yeah.
And
Because
when did Carolyn die?
Carolyn died, let's see, her body was found in July, specifically July 31st of 1973.
Okay, so
But
bit of a break
Carolyn
there.
was also the one that died from the strychnine poisoning. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So maybe he took a break. He's like, I'm just not feeling it anymore. And then he sees Carolyn, and I think Carolyn looks quite a bit like Kim. And he sees her, and he's like, oh man. And yeah, I don't know. The strychnine poisoning throws me.
yeah, the strychnine poisoning
But-
is something that kind of throws this whole thing off.
But who knows? Kills her, whatever happens. And then Teresa, who's the most similar, I think, to Kim, because she's older, they look similar, all that. And he kills her, and then maybe the Jane Doe too. Who
Especially
knows?
because-
there's a through line.
Yeah, especially because we don't know exactly when the Jane Doe died. So
Right.
she could have fit in between.
Yeah, we don't know where she landed in the timeline. Yeah. There's a through line for really all of them except for Carolyn,
Yeah,
because that strychnine poisoning is very confusing.
right. It's
And I looked it up.
Yeah.
I looked up what strychnine was, and it said it's used as a pesticide. So maybe, because, like I said, she looks a lot like Kim. So maybe he got a little sick and twisted with her.
right.
And experimented some. And he's like, hey, I got this pesticide.
Okay.
Maybe it was from like the school shed or something
Right.
like that.
Well, that's the other thing too that kind of throws me with Kim
And he tries it.
is that they found that oil that was used for like shop work, metal cutting, on her.
Right.
And he was a creative
That was on
writing
her.
teacher.
Right.
So unless he went to the shop class, if they had one, frequently, I don't know how he would get that on
I mean,
him.
was he,
I mean, I could see... I wonder if it's one of those things where it's, like maybe it was an exposed part of his vehicle. And because vehicles have the lubricant on it as well. And just where she was laying, she managed to pick some up. And they're like, oh, this is used in this specific area, but it could also be used for parts that are in another area as well.
Yeah, or maybe he's a handyman, and he took her into his garage and she got it on her there. Like, it doesn't... It's strange, but I don't think it hurts the theory especially for Kim. Carolyn's the confusing one, and she could have been in a similar category as Jeanette, where it's just coincidence, different person. Right. But there's a through line, you know. You can make an argument for this guy.
Right.
So, a lot more than Ted Bundy.
Yeah. More than I would feel like most of the big names that we kind of went over.
Yeah, more than any of them, for sure. Because all of them were like, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Then, since he died in 76, that's also might be why there weren't really any victims past...
Killings after that.
I mean, 74 seemed to be kind of the latest. Most of these were thought to be, except for the two girls that maybe, but I don't know. Because those two were so much later than the other ones that I would be cautious of putting them with the other girls, right?
Right. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
And again, we don't know when Jane Doe died.
Right.
So maybe she was the last victim.
Right. Because they...
And...
Let me see. They estimated
she
that
was killed after
died,
Therese.
Yeah. They estimated she died between 72 and 74. So...
Okay.
And Teresa, who was the last
maybe
known date, she was found dead in December, specifically December 28th of 1973. So the very end of 73 was Teresa.
Okay. So she was killed in 74, let's say.
Right.
That falls in the timeline.
Right.
All of those dates fall in the timeline, but that falls at the end of the timeline. And maybe something happens, he stops killing, and then he dies 2 years later.
Right.
Because plenty of killers, plenty of people who have killed a whole lot more people than 8 have taken much longer breaks, than 2 years.
Yes. And
so
who's to say
it's
that,
not,
maybe there's some missing girls out there that they just didn't find the bodies of that he could have, done something to in the meantime.
Right. Yeah, exactly. There could be more Jane Does out there.
Right.
That haven't been linked to the case. It's hard to say.
Yep.
Because typically, killers will have, hot periods and cold periods. Where they kill a lot of people in close proximity within, a year or two. And then stop for a while. Or slow down significantly.
Right.
And given that the first 3 victims, 4 victims, 5 victims, if we're including Jeanette, were all killed within a year. Then it slowed down a bit with Carolyn and Therese. It could have gone on longer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows? But yeah, he's the most likely.
I agree.
Easily. At the very least, I can absolutely believe he killed Kim.
For sure.
And by association, at the very least, Therese, Maureen, and Yvonne.
Yeah. So, those are all the suspects I have.
Cool.
But just to wrap it up a little bit, in 2011, the police submitted the DNA that they had to the Combined DNA Index System, or CODIS. which if you follow any sort of true crime stuff, you're probably more familiar with that.
Right.
So it is in a national DNA database. So that's another
Good.
sort of hit, I think, against Arthur Lee Allen, because they do have his DNA.
Yeah,
it
because he
would
was
have
already
been
in the database.
yes.
Yeah, which he was already the weakest suspect apart from
Right.
Bundy.
Yeah. And in 2018, they actually tested the DNA, hoping that they could identify the killer or killers, like they had for the Golden State Killer. I don't know if nothing's come of that yet, because we haven't heard anything, but who knows? Maybe
Yeah,
they're...
I don't know if how long that takes, or
Yeah. I mean, that's based off
anything
of,
like that.
like, people doing DNA testing and then following the lines, right? So...
Right, exactly. Yeah, and the fact that it didn't come up implies that it wasn't any of the big names.
Right, exactly. And I don't know if they took
So-
any... I doubt they took any DNA from Frederick Manelli once he died, because he was in a car
Right.
crash.
Yeah, it was a car crash.
Yeah.
The only thing... Which victim had partial fingerprints?
I believe that was actually Kim. It was her checkbook that had 2 fingerprints on it.
Right. Because
And
typically, I don't know
She was.
if it's the
she
case
was also
in
the one
the early
with.
70s.
She was also the one with semen who taken from her body. So she's the one that has the most
Right.
evidence.
She had the most evidence, which is
Yes.
good.
Right.
But if I don't know if things have changed. But because teachers typically have to be fingerprinted nowadays.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was the case in '72 in California,
Yeah.
or how long he had been teaching. But I know they fingerprint people. So I don't know. Fingerprinting may have started in the 80s. I think that's when stuff like that was getting more, like, being used more widely. But I'm not an expert on the field.
Yeah.
But if they did have his fingerprints, then that'd be great.
Yeah.
But assuming he hasn't been named, it's doubtful, which is a shame.
Yeah.
But they should exhume his body or speak to a living relative.
Right. Yeah, because if they have the semen, the DNA that way, maybe they could do a DNA test
Yeah.
through a family member and be able to tie it back to him. So.
Because of the suspects, he's the only one worth considering, honestly.
Yeah.
So.
So.
Yeah. Well,
That's all I have.
we've been recording for 2 hours.
I told you this one would be
Cool.
a long one.
So, it is. I think it's the longest one yet.
I think so, but Arizona is probably close.
Yeah, I think Arizona was like an hour 50 or something like that. I could
Yeah.
be wrong.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll wrap that up.
Yep.
With that, it was probably this guy
Probably.
of those suspects.
Right. Assuming it wasn't just all complete coincidence and random other people.
Yeah, which I think is equally plausible
Right.
to this guy,
Yeah.
honestly. Yeah, it was either him or random killings, or most likely both.
Yeah.
So we'll wrap that up there.
Yep.
Next week is Colorado,
Yep.
where stuff will happen. I don't know. I haven't done any of the research.
Yeah.
I
I'm expecting it to be another shorter episode, but you never know. We could get talking about
never know.
some part of it. It is unsolved, as far as I can tell, and not like a technically unsolved, but an actually unsolved. So we'll see.
Like this one.
Like this one, yes. However, there was only
So
spoilers, only one victim instead of a ton. So
Right. So should be shorter.
should be shorter.
And if the suspect list is anything like this one, it should go by pretty quick.
Yeah.
But we'll see next week. We'll see you next week. Hopefully.
Hopefully. Everyone
So
stay safe.
stay safe.
See you next time.
And see you next time.